If you've ever been close to losing in a fighting game, you've got two options. Purely rely on patience and dexterity to make a comeback and get the win, or you can rely on a comeback mechanic. X Factor, Rage, and Instinct all come to mind as well-known comeback mechanics, but before we go any further, what exactly is a comeback mechanic in the first place? According to Infield's fighting game glossary, a comeback mechanic is a system in a fighting game that tends to help the losing player and allow them to make a comeback a bit more easily. Basically, if you're losing, pop this to increase the chance of you winning the match. A common debate between fighting game players concerns the impact these mechanics have on a game's meta, as sometimes they dramatically shift how a game is played if they're too strong. Get it right, however, and you can allow players to perform new combos, setups, and mind games with such a mechanic. But what if you get it wrong? And not just wrong, horrifically wrong. Yeah, we're talking about Pandora. Found in 2012's Street Fighter X Tekken, this admittedly awesome looking system involves you sacrificing your partner character to win the match solo, and if that sounds like it'd just set you back, it's because it does. To prepare for this video, I watched a lot of Street Fighter X Tekken tournament footage, both old and new, to see how Pandora was utilized by pro players. Spoiler alert, none of them use Pandora, and this video is about why Pandora isn't the best, just to put it lightly. Before we move on, allow me to show you this quote of former Capcom employee Seth Killian saying that the mechanic is really weak and that Capcom were on the verge of cutting it out of the game altogether if they couldn't fix it before the game's launch. Now that we have a basic understanding of not just Pandora but also comeback mechanics in general, let's dig even deeper to what I think is the worst comeback mechanic of all time. As a comeback mechanic is supposed to help you win the match when you're down on life, you'd expect the mechanic itself to provide you with some form of meaningful advantage. Health regeneration, extra damage, and a boost in speed are all commonplace in fighting games, and in the case of Marvel vs. Capcom 3's X Factor, you get all three of these in one. Speaking of Marvel, X Factor is a genuinely useful comeback mechanic as it allows players to clutch victory from the jaws of defeat, and the effects it has on characters are different. While Wolverine becomes insanely fast in X Factor, Hulk doesn't get a speed boost at all, for example, and this variation leads to the mechanic becoming more personal and less universal, which allows for greater strategy and game depth. Pandora, on the other hand, while it does buff your character's damage a bit, it's not by a large amount, and it won't be noticed by most players. It's also not immediately obvious as to what Pandora actually does other than killing your point character, so for most players it simply isn't worth it. In reality, activating Pandora gives you a slight damage buff, it refills your meter, and it gives you a bit of health back. It's important to note that before the version 2013 balance patch, your meter wouldn't immediately be full when activating Pandora. Instead, you'd have to actually wait for it to refill, lowering combo potential, and it means that Capcom went out of their way to buff Pandora when they updated the game. Pandora also doesn't have passive health regeneration or a speed boost, so it's useless if you're looking for a mechanic that boosts these parts of a character's toolkit. But as for the damage boost, it's not bad, I guess? You get a 13 to 15% damage boost, and when compared to damage values from other fighting game comeback mechanics, these are kind of low. For reasons we'll get into later, you need to be able to take out the opponent quickly when in Pandora, and as this damage boost isn't anything amazing, this may not be possible depending on your team and combo routes. When deciding to activate Pandora, you need to consider if sacrificing your low health character is worth it, and in most cases it simply isn't. The only time you'd realistically be able to use Pandora is if your low health point character lands a combo that lets you activate the install, and then you land a combo or super that's guaranteed to kill. If you don't kill the opponent this way, you automatically lose, and I'll go over why in a bit. Cross Rush, the game's Universal Magic series, also experiences a damage reduction when in Pandora. I'm not sure why this is the case, but it means that using the Magic series into a super does less damage with the comeback mechanic than it does normally. Another thing to keep in mind is that due to the game's gem system, the opponent can always select defensive gems to slightly negate the damage boost, making Pandora even less useful in this regard. Also, the meter advantage granted by Pandora only applies to the current round, meaning that if you lose with full meter, it's not carried into the next round. If meter did carry over, a potential strategy would be to see that you're most likely going to lose, activate Pandora to get the meter boost, and then start the next round with greater resources. This could provide players with a more thoughtful risk-reward mechanic than what's found in the final game, as having your actions in one match affect the next match would take long-term decision-making into account. You can also run out of meter while in this mode, so if you throw out some EX moves and they all miss, you're kinda screwed. Instantly giving players full meter does allow them to use EX moves upon activation right away, but as building meter in this game in general is very easy, you'll most likely have a lot of meter anyway without having to use Pandora. Even though Pandora lets you perform combos with your other character after a combo extender, it doesn't reset the juggle limit or damage scaling, so activating it towards the end of a long combo means that you'll most likely not be able to kill. Finally, the health boost provided by Pandora also isn't amazing. Even with this boost, you'll still be down on life when compared to your opponent, and as Pandora doesn't increase your defensive stats, you still take full damage from attacks. This means that strategies about using Pandora to survive situations that would otherwise kill you will never work. Going back to X Factor for a moment, not only can you use it to cancel out of unsafe moves, but you can also use it to negate chip damage, allowing you to make really quick decisions that can save you the match. Nothing like this is in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, however, and it means that Pandora is only usable as an offensive mechanic. I haven't even mentioned this yet, but what if the opponent just runs away and blocks? Stages in this game are larger than the ones in Street Fighter 4, so running away is a legitimate strategy. After all, the game used to be known as Street Fighter Cross Timeout for a reason. A health and damage buff don't mean anything if the opponent doesn't even want to fight you in the first place for the next few seconds, so if you're fighting any character with high health or strong mobility, you're going to need a miracle to even touch them once they're far away from you, and if you're playing a character who has poor mobility, good luck. Overall, while Pandora does provide you with some buffs, they aren't anything special, and those outside of the competitive scene won't even realize that these buffs exist. The cons definitely outweigh the pros here, and this is only the first reason as to why I think Pandora sucks. I've been avoiding talking about this in detail to not ruin the surprise early, but now is the perfect time to talk about Pandora's time limit. Originally, you had 7 seconds before this bar would run out, but the 2013 patch increased it to 10 seconds. What this means is that upon activating Pandora, you have to win the match in 10 seconds, because when time runs out, you instantly lose. This means that activating Pandora outside of a guaranteed kill combo will never work, because the opponent can see that you've activated it and just start running away. Having to win neutral and then land a kill combo simply isn't going to happen in the span of 10 seconds, and for the sake of argument, let's say that it does. You somehow manage to land an awesome combo that's guaranteed to give you the win, but then this happens.
Need backup! Maybe?
Come on, Jen! You suck!
Yes!
Oh my god!
If you've played Street Fighter Cross Tekken before, you'll know that everything takes forever. Because of how long most cinematics and throws take in this game, it means that the 10-second Pandora timer will drain even when you don't have control, and not to mention the actual timer. Like Street Fighter 4, the timer in this game also doesn't pause during super cinematics, so it's very common to experience a time over during one of these, completely invalidating the move. A lot of supers in this game take at least 5 seconds to finish, meaning that half of Pandora's time limit will have expired by then. If the super doesn't kill, you instantly lose, and at that point there's nothing you can do, so you probably shouldn't have even used Pandora in the first place. When you combine Pandora and the regular timer, you now have 2 timers actively working against you, and it means that it's extremely hard to make a comeback when you activate this install. Unlike other games that quickly let you traverse around the screen to perform deadly mix-ups that can kill a character very quickly, Street Fighter Cross Tekken doesn't have crazy movement like this, so if you're far away from the opponent and you activate Pandora, it's pretty much over, especially if they have the life lead. This game also doesn't have a snapback mechanic, so if the opponent's partner character is on low health, you can't force them in. You're forced to fight their point character on their terms, and it makes it even more of an uphill battle. Even outside of cinematics, regular combos take a lot of time too. If I score a jump in into a big damage combo, this will usually end in a hard knockdown, meaning you have to wait a second or two before you can hit the opponent again. Combine that with the time spent actually doing the combo, and it means that 9 times out of 10, the opponent will survive. And that's not mentioning dropping the combo, because this is bound to happen to all of us at some point. If only there was a way to get your low health point character out of there and bring in your reserve character, allowing you to keep playing neutral with less risk. Nice. If the opponent is on low health and right next to you, it's definitely possible to win with Pandora, but I still don't see the point in using it. By not using it, you get to play until the main timer runs out and see if you can win neutral that way, but if you do activate it, you're now forcing an oppressive timer onto yourself for pretty much no benefits. Winning a match with Pandora doesn't actually do anything outside of having a really cool looking KO screen, so it's not like the game gives you an actually useful reward if you win with it, and as we covered before, it takes away your meter whether you win or lose. I think that in a better world, running out of Pandora shouldn't immediately kill you, and the match should continue as normal when it runs out. You can still keep your meter, but maybe your damage output is lowered a little bit to help balance the mechanic. Personally, I've played hundreds of matches in this game, and I've never seriously used Pandora. I've even won a few tournaments in my country, and the opportunity to consider activating Pandora has never popped up in my mind. I've just never felt the need to use Pandora, especially because everything in this game takes so long anyway, so I was always better off thugging it out and just trying to get the kill normally. And if all that isn't enough, it gets even worse. As Pandora sacrifices your low health character, it means that every single tag mechanic in the game is gone when you activate it. A common strategy in Street Fighter Cross Tekken is to do a move that hits multiple times, tag, and then continue the combo from there. If they block the multi-hit move, you're usually plus enough to force a mix-up, so finding team strategies is a crucial aspect of the game. When I think of characters that need a strong partner on point, I immediately think of Zangief. Instead of putting him on point and then trying to win neutral, put him last. That way, you can get the hit with your point character and then do a tag combo to start your Zangief pressure. Whether it's a combo or a tricky reset into a command grab, there are limitless ways to utilize the tag mechanic to personalize your team in this game, and it's one of the most awesome things about Cross Tekken. But it's not just Zangief, because there are ways to enhance every character in this game by pairing them up with a strong partner. Whether it's by doing tricky overheads with Marduk's jumping heavy kick, doing combo extenders after a big wall bounce, or even meter dumping all your resources for a devastating team super, characters have 1,000,001 different ways to harmoniously work with one another, and this limitless potential is a big part of the game's appeal. When it comes to team-based defense, the universal launcher move is also invincible to low attacks, so you can also try and use this on a wake up to force your partner in if you know the opponent is going to go for a low. Pandora eliminates all this strategy from the game, as you can't hard tag, tag combo, tag block string, tag launcher, or cross rush tag anymore. These basic fundamental parts of the game are all removed, and you can really feel it when you activate Pandora. Not having the safety net of a high health partner character is terrifying, especially when you're at a major life deficit, so if both characters are on low health, I recommend never using Pandora. If you couldn't tell by now, the team aspect of Street Fighter Cross Tekken is incredibly important, and you intentionally remove all of it by using Pandora. Also, you know how time over wins are calculated by figuring out which team has the most amount of total health? Well, since you're only one character, you automatically have less health than the other team, even if it looks like you should have more health. This is due to your other character having a health value of 0, so the game will always give you the loss. If you could potentially win on time over after activating Pandora, this move might be useful in close situations. Since the timer doesn't stop during the cutscene, you can wait until there's a few seconds left and then activate it. But as this isn't the case, I failed to see why you would even use Pandora when on low health. All of this limits the amount of realistic situations that Pandora would be activated, as you can't use it to complement team composition, and you can't use it to win via time over, which is a common occurrence in this game, so it simply isn't worth using it in my opinion. The biggest drawback you have as a player when using Pandora is the character sacrifice, and while you definitely get the point by now, words alone can't truly explain how stressful it is when you're down a character and only have 10 seconds to win. If you have strategies about using tag mechanics for more damage or to remain safe on unsafe special moves, none of these are applicable in Pandora, and it can screw with your muscle memory, big time. The concept of a comeback mechanic in a tag fighting game that eliminates one of your characters is admittedly very interesting, and there are plenty of avenues you can go down when deciding such a mechanic. What I think would be cool personally is a system like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's Gem Select. Maybe Pandora can come in around 5 or maybe 6 different forms, and you can pick which form it takes before the game starts. If you like playing aggressively with quick buttons and solid frame advantage, pick the aggressive Pandora. If you're more of a defensive player who values strong mobility and runaway, pick the speed Pandora. If you like playing big bodies and love to tank hits with super armor, pick the armored Pandora. Hell, maybe you can not get any buffs but use it to resurrect your teammate with a bit of extra life. This hypothetical system of mine allows players to customize the game's comeback mechanic to their liking, and it can go a long way in providing the game with even more team personalization. As this game's gem system was slathered in controversy even before the game itself was released, I'm sure we're all familiar with the mechanic, but I'll be talking about gems in relation to Pandora. Much like the other attribute boosts provided by gems, there exist a few buffs to Pandora. You can potentially increase your damage by 30%, increase your defense by 160%, and get a smaller defensive boost if the opponent uses Pandora. These first two sound awesome, especially the defense, but this realistically won't help you out in a real match. As demonstrated before, high defense stats don't mean anything if the opponent can just run away, and as they'll have the life lead, offense is more important in this situation anyway. The offensive gem is actually not that bad, but it does require you to use Pandora to activate it, and as it uses valuable gem slots, you may want to replace it with other gems that can be activated more often in neutral. Even without the Pandora gems, you can easily still have access to increased damage, defense, and speed, meaning you can experience the gem system's full benefits without even needing to think of Pandora. Being able to go online and use fun teams that focus on Pandora is entertaining, but this will never work in a competitive offline setting. If tournaments allowed you to pick the specific gems that you wanted, two things would happen. The first is that the event will fall way behind schedule due to how long it takes to make your preferred gem layout, and the second is that players would all pick the best gems in the game with little to no variation. Also, I highly doubt anyone would pick even one of the Pandora gems in this context. What happens instead is that tournament players must pick one of 5 default gem sets to use. Attack, Defense, Meter, Pandora, and Balance are the defaults, and you have to pick the one that appeals to you the most. As Pandora is a highly situational mechanic that goes unused in most matches, the gem set related to it is pretty much worthless, as all the other gem sets are immediately more useful. Personally, I play a team of Ryu and Kuma, and I like to use the attack gems. Giving these characters, especially Kuma, more damage is amazing, and it allows me to put fear into the opponent as they know they're going to take massive damage if they make even a simple mistake. If I'm experimenting with a side team for fun, I'll often go for the speed gem set, as it allows me to walk the enemy down in neutral and just have better mobility in general. Defense gems are great for lower health characters like Akuma and Kami, as it allows them to take more risks when they run their offense. Balance gives you gems from the 3 previous categories if you want to be an all-rounder and not commit to any one gem set in particular. Pandora though? Well, you're not using Pandora in neutral, you're not using it in most combos, and you're not using it on defense, so by picking this gem set, you sacrifice a lot of potential advantages provided by the other gem sets. By the way, the other gems last for around 15 to 20 seconds, which is more time than Pandora itself is active for, so even if you do pick the Pandora gem set and activate it, you don't get to keep its buffs for as long as the other ones. If you've labbed your Pandora combos and are dead set on using the mechanic, then you may want to use these gems, but for 99% of the player base, you're better off picking literally any of the other gem sets. Even though this video is about why Pandora sucks, I don't think the actual game does, so please don't think I hate Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I've been a big fan of this game ever since I got my copy back on launch day in 2012, and I have a lot of good memories associated with it. It's a major shame that Pandora wasn't a bit better, although part of me is glad that this game isn't dominated by a cheap and overpowered comeback mechanic. In my opinion, the best part about Pandora is how it looks. Seeing the characters transform into these nightmare creatures with tribal tattoo patterns all over their body is so cool, and their transformation animations are all beautifully done. I wish Pandora was more viable in the final game, as I believe Capcom put a lot of work into the mechanic. It couldn't have been easy or timely to do the audio, visual effects, animations, etc. for all of the characters' Pandora forms, so it's disappointing that more people don't use this install, but I don't blame them honestly. If you haven't played Street Fighter Cross Tekken before and you've made it all the way to the end of this video, it can be easy for you to immediately dunk on Pandora like I just did for the past 15 or so minutes, but I urge you to try the game out for yourself and experiment with Pandora. Perhaps you can find a really cool and interesting combo route with it, and despite its drawbacks, I hope to see more people experiment with Pandora in the future. My goal with this video is not to spread hate towards the game or its mechanics, but rather to provide information about it all to an audience who may not be ultra familiar with the game. I had a lot of fun recording all the footage for this video, and messing around with Pandora in training mode was good fun too. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one.